Using classroom-based language assessments, we as a teacher need to develop and commix many concepts, approaches, and uses in order to understand the role and use of assessment in the language classroom. It is so important to clearly know what is language teaching and the role of language teaching in language assessment, as well as the decisions that are made of the basis of classroom-based assignments. Then, the process of using it. Next, we need discussion in the roles of developers and users in the process of using. In the language assessment, and last but less, it is imperative to review practically, which will help teachers assure our assessment will be practical to use. Let's start with what is the language teaching? The principal instruction in any language under any condition, formal or informal, in practice, as the form is common using among language teacher and applied language instruction is a second or foreign language within a system of education such as the institutional teaching of French in Britain and English in France, more especially the teaching of a mother tongue. How language of national language may be referred to as health teaching, may be referred as health teacher where it means first language, and the teaching of one or more other language as L2 teaching where L2 means second language. The second question deals with why do I teach? The answer is clear. By and language level 1, teaching is the past of the general education, which deals with the transmission of a society, right culture and standard speech, which may or may not involve training in a private assessment. It usually includes instruction in aspect of a particular literature, and it has traditionally includes special instruction in grammar, spelling, punctuation, and composition, matters that are currently controversial. L2 teaching for many centuries centers of occasion in a classical language in Europe, especially Latin, something Greek, of Hebrew, and elsewhere such a language classic of Arabic, Mandarin, Chinese, China, and Sanskrit. In Britain, the teaching of a second vernacular in Norwegian language has taken place on a limited scale and made since the 19th in Scotland, and while usually for those who have already have hailing of Wales as their mother tongues, their general educations proceeding in English is a second language which more often than not become their primary medium because there has been no significant other vernacular. In England since Norman French in the 14th L2 teaching in that country has generally been concerned with foreign language. The most powerful L2 traditionally in England and elsewhere in the English-speaking world has usually been the teaching of French. And we haven't understand what is language teaching. We have to go beyond. What is the language assessment? Language assessment or language testing is file of a student under the umbrella of applied linguistics. Its main focus in the assessment on first, second, on other language in the school, college, or university context, assessment of language used in the workplace, and assessment of language in the immigration, citizenship, and asylum context. The assessment may include listening, speaking, reading, writing, and integration of two or more of these skills. Of other construction of the language ability, equal weight may be placed on knowledge, understanding how the language works theoretically, and professional ability to use the language practically. Of greater weight may be given to one aspect or another. Assessment is a popular and something misunderstood term in the current educational practices. You may be tempted to think of assessment and testing as synonymous terms, but they are not. Assessment is appraising or estimating the level or magnitude of some attribute of a person. In educational practices, assessment is an ongoing process that encompasses a wide range of methodology of teaching. To make it clear, let's see what tests are. They are subset of assessment in genre of assessment techniques. Once we have clearly the concept of both issues necessary to carry on with the process that we read the following need to present similarities and differences between language teaching and language assessment. Both teaching and assessment are processes or activities in which teachers and students participate. In both teaching and assessment, teachers present their students with tasks that require them to use a language. The main difference between teaching and assessment is in the purpose. Teaching is a method of promoting learning, while assessment is a method and the collection information. The similarities and difference between teaching and assessment are summarized in this table based on the information about it. It's really important to discuss the decision you need to make in the classroom. Let's continue with my explication, similarities and difference between teaching and assessment. Teaching, assessment, participants, teacher and students, task requirement, teacher present learning tasks to students, assessment, teacher present assessment tasks to students, teaching, students engage in tasks that require them to use language, assessment, students engage in the tasks that require them to use language. Purpose of the task: teaching, promote or facilitate learning, aiding learners in which cognitive, emotional, and social development. Assessment, college samples of students' performance. In classroom-based assessment, we use an assessment to collect information about our students' learning. Then we use this information to make decisions the next points in the test. Developers and test users. In the most classroom-based assessment, the roles of the test developers and the test user are typically performed by the same person or group of persons and single teacher or a group of teachers. In the role of the test user, you need to consider the intent, consequence of use the assessment, and the kinds of decision to be made. As test developer, you need to consider the information about the student, language ability that is relevant for making decisions, and the kits of assessment text what they will provide this information. The last but not least point to be discussions and to be important to mention about practicality. Practicality test states with budgetary limits can be complete by the test taker within appropriate time constraints, has clear duration for administration, appropriately utilize available human resource, does not exceed available material resource, considers the time and effort involved for both type design and scoring. In conclusion, a practically is the relation between the results that are needed in the development and use of the assessment.